One of the forgotten joys of modern life is becoming lost in enchanting literature. Today, I hope to reignite some desire in you to read great works by discussing a particularly profound feature of one of the best books of all time. I'm Julie Hartman, and this is Timeless. Hey everyone, welcome to Timeless. I hope that you're having a great week. Just a reminder, you know the drill, hit the subscribe button down below so that you can be notified every time I post a new video. And be sure to follow me at Julie R. Hartman on Instagram and Twitter, so at the very least, you can stay updated with every single chapter I finish of Jane Eyre. I've been posting so much about that recently on my social media. Speaking of which, what a great segue I just nonchalantly initiated for you here. Today, we are going to be talking about some of my takeaways, in particular, one big takeaway from Jane Eyre. Now, before you turn this off and go, I've never read Jane Eyre, I don't like reading old novels, I don't get them, I don't understand them, they come from a time to which the modern world bears no resemblance. I tell you, just give me a minute. A year ago, if you had told me that I would be sitting here talking to you about Jane Eyre, I would have laughed in your face. I had a lot of reverence and respect for people who loved to read great works, but I just never considered myself to be one of those who would be interested. I have a secret for you. This stuff is so rich. It is not antiquated language. There are not antiquated ideas in these books. They are treasures that are all around for us to partake in and to ingest into our own lives. And we in the modern world have become so deadened to their richness. That is the thesis statement for today. My task for you is just to present an opportunity for you to engage in life. I want to reignite a spark in you that this could be something worthwhile for you to partake in. You don't need to have read Jane Eyre in order to enjoy this episode. But I'll just tell you quickly, for the sake of convenience, because I'm going to be quoting a little bit from this book today, where I am in the novel. I'm a third of the way through, so I'm about 150 pages out of about 400. And I'll give you a synopsis, which is not revealing the whole book because the best parts haven't even happened yet. Jane Eyre was born an orphan. She was adopted by her aunt, Mrs. Reed, and she goes to live in this mansion with her aunt and her three wicked cousins. It's like Cinderella in the first few pages. Jane is terribly mistreated by these cousins, especially the older cousin who's mean to her, who throws things at her. And her aunt blames Jane for these issues instead of blaming the culprits, those cousins. Throws her in a room, locks her away. There's all of this, even though it's a sad thing, fabulous imagery and descriptions in those beginning pages. But basically they decide that Jane has to be sent away. She can no longer live with her aunt and her cousins. So she's sent away to this orphanage where, sort of like an orphanage school, if you will, where a lot of girls who are parentless go to live. It's called Lowood. There at Lowood, Jane encounters this marvelous friend, this character who, I know it sounds corny, has become a role model of mine, even though she's fictitious. Her name is Helen Burns. Helen Burns, I'm so sorry for a little bit of a spoiler alert, dies of typhus. But Jane learns so much from her during this time at the orphanage. Jane stays at the orphanage until she's 18 years old, and then she goes away to be a governess, a la Fräulein Maria in The Sound of Music, goes away to be a governess at this mansion to tutor this young girl. The owner of the mansion is this man named Mr. Rochester, and where I am now, Mr. Rochester and Jane start to fall in love, but there's a little bit of an impediment to their budding romance because Mr. Rochester has a big secret. I'm going to leave it there. But again, I just wanted to provide you with some context so that you understand when I'm quoting what the backstory is. So why am I reading this book? Well, to be honest with you, I was in an airport, I was really bored, and there was only one book that caught my interest at the store and I decided to buy it. That's reason number one. Reason number two, the bigger reason, is that I just wanted to be an informed citizen. I thought, you know what, if I'm doing a talk show and I want to say that I am a proponent of the beauty of Western civilization, this is a book I really ought to read. But I'm telling you, it is transformed from just a convenient thing to read when I'm bored or an obligation I should read in order to be a good talk show host. It is transformed into this magnificent pillar of my life, which has both enriched me and instructed me. So I'm going to focus on one particular feature that I really admire in this book. The way that Jane Eyre looks at things, the way that she observes life and crucially people, is so different from the modern way that we observe things. Before I get to that though, I want to quickly talk about what are some of the reasons why we have deadened ourselves to this great literature. The first hypothesis that I'd like to present is that we in the United States have been infected with this practicality myth that when you go to college, which is really the time in addition to high school where you would become acquainted with and consume these great works, we think that college is not that time to, as I said, consume these great works, but rather you have to set yourself up for your job. You have to major in something that's going to funnel you into the right industry. Look at the US Department of Education statistics about the foremost chosen major in the United States. Can you guess? Drum roll, please. Business. Okay, business/economics is the #1 chosen major in the United States. This past year, over 315,000 undergraduates in the United States graduated with a degree in business. 37,000 undergraduates graduated in philosophy, English, and history majors combined. That is just remarkable. There is this death of the liberal arts. There's this death of appreciating these good works. We don't see a utility in reading Jane Eyre. How is Jane Eyre going to help you get to Goldman Sachs? How is Jane Eyre going to help you get into the business school that you want? People don't think it will, and it probably won't, to be honest, so they think there's no use in it. We've been bitten by this practicality bug. Oh, by the way, the situation in graduate school is even bleaker. It's already bleak enough for undergraduates. In graduate school, 42% of all master's degrees that were awarded in 2019 were concentrated in education and business, okay? There is a total death of the liberal arts. That's the first component here. We live in an overly practical society. We think that everything that we have to study, do, must be on paper useful. The second reason is a little different that I would like to put out there. I think the second reason is that the way that these works have been taught is a real shame. Specifically, teachers, not all teachers, I've had many wonderful good teachers. I'm not trying to paint all instructors with one broad brush. But I have noticed, and through my research, it seems to be something that many other Americans have noticed, teachers tend to focus on the symbolism in particular novels, teaching the pupils, what's a simile or a metaphor or an idiom, identifying literary devices. That is more at the forefront of educators' minds in American education today than, as I say, taking the wisdom away from these great works and integrating its gloriousness into your own life and into your own worldview. I think that's why I didn't consider myself to be someone who would appreciate a book like Jane Eyre. In high school, I remember every page I read, if I saw, there was a lake mentioned, I would highlight lake and go, maybe that's a symbol that I can bring up in one of my essay. Maybe that's the way that the author is trying to convey some hidden meaning. And you know what that does? That robs you of the joy of the book. It makes this object that you have to dissect instead of appreciate. The over-analyzation, if you will, of literature kills and deadens literature. So it's this kind of vicious cycle. We have people who don't see any utility in reading these great books because they think they have to pursue something that's useful. And then that desire, if you will, to be useful is fueled in part also by the fact that there isn't any more a transmission of enthusiasm about these works. If people in school really came to appreciate these works more instead of just dissecting them like they're frogs in a science class, then maybe they wouldn't go on and major in economics and business. Maybe they would try to spend more time learning about them. Those are my preliminary hypothesis. But again, I really want to like scream from the rooftops to people that this is worth reading. This is worth integrating into your lives. And so now on to the crux of the episode. We are going to talk about the way that Charlotte Bronte specifically highlights one's essence, the character of characters, the goodness, the qualities inherent in that individual. As I was reading Jane Eyre, I was so taken aback by the way that everyone in the book is described, whether it's a particularly important character like Helen Burns, or whether it's a particularly unimportant character like one of the servants at the home at which Jane works. Each of those individuals were described in a way, both their physical appearance and, as I say, their essence, their character, in a way that we in American life now don't seem to be able to grasp. Think about when someone is introduced to you, or you introduce a friend to another friend, or you hear about someone. What do we talk about? We talk about facts about them. Where are they from? What do they do for work? Where did they go to college? The extent to which we get at someone's character is, oh, they're nice, or oh, they're fashionable. We don't know anymore how to capture the essence of a person. Now, of course, I'm not a fool. I don't think it's, necessarily the best thing when you introduce a friend and say the most beautiful soliloquy about the most internal part or beautiful part of their character. Of course, you're not going to do that. When you're introducing someone, it is just more natural to speak facts about them. But think about your own friends. Could we all really describe the essence of some of our closest friends? I've asked myself this question, and I like to think I have some very close friendships. I don't know if I could really sit down and write deeply about the essence or the worldview or the character of some of my closest friends. Another question is, can you do that for yourself? If you're unable to do it for a friend or for someone else, it probably indicates that you haven't examined that part of yourself in a deep way. And so what these books reveal is a way for you to look at the world, look at yourself, look at your friends in a way that, as I say, modern society has deadened us to. Let's look at one of the passages. I have 5 I want to highlight for you, brilliantly color-coded, if I do say so myself, in this book. By the way, you can tell I bought this at an airport. This cover of Jane Eyre, I don't know who designed it. It's so witchy looking. Look at this back of Jane Eyre. It's like, is that Jane? She looks like a little witch. Maybe she is. I haven't gotten to the end of the book. Okay. First passage. I want you to remember this is a way of looking at things that we just don't even consider anymore. Okay. This is not actually about a character of a person. It's about the surrounding circumstances or picture of your life. So Jane here is talking about when typhus first came to infect the orphanage. She doesn't just say, people caught typhus. This is the way she describes it. She says the forest dell, the dell is a valley, if you will. The forest dell where Lowell lay was the cradle of fog, which quickening with the quickening spring crept into the orphan asylum, breathed typhus through its crowded schoolroom and dormitory, and when May arrived, transformed the seminary into a hospital. Isn't that just a beautiful way of describing this phenomena of, typhus infected the orphanage? This imagery here, the fog, is carrying the typhus. It breathes its way into the schoolroom and spreads. It's just, as I say, a way of viewing the world that we don't consider. We look at fog and we just think it's an element of our lives. And of course, it is just an element of our lives. But what's remarkable about these authors is that they don't have the distractions that we do of the modern world. They have to look at nature around them and think about the ways that nature can be illustrations, can be used as beautiful imagery to to depict other phenomena in life. I'll give you a second example here of just the imagery, the way of looking at things that's different. Mr. Rochester is describing an old lover that he had, and he's standing on a balcony and he sees his old lover come up the street with another man. So he's upset, needless to say. He says, "I seemed to hear a hiss, and the green snake of jealousy, rising on undulating coils from the moonlit balcony, glided within my waistcoat and ate its way 2 minutes into my heart's core." How would the modern author describe this? It would go, "I saw my lady with another man and I got jealous." This is such a imagery-rich way of describing something. And I love that idea of the snake, because also the way that the snake slithers and then comes in to bite the heart of Mr. Rochester, it sort of mimics the way that envy and jealousy creeps up on you. It's not a sudden thing that just happens to you. It kind of comes into your life slowly but surely, and then it hits you. It's just really beautiful, and it makes you open your eyes and pay attention to everyday feelings, phenomena of life more. These books cast a great light on the things that the modern world has darkened. So let's go, now that we've talked about the imagery, let's go to the way that Jane describes people. The person that I'm going to focus on is Helen Burns, who I indicated is one of my personal heroes. She is this great young girl at the orphanage with Jane, and she's this pious 14-year-old who Jane admires, who's a great comfort to her. She does die of typhus, unfortunately, very quickly into the book. But the thing about Helen is that she's a victim of one of the other teachers' wrath. One of the teachers in the school just decides to be mean and always pick on Helen for something that Helen is doing. She's not sitting up straight. She's not taking care of her books in the way that they should be. Her handwriting is messy. Any little thing that this teacher could get Helen on, she tries to do. And so when Jane is describing Helen, she really highlights, as I say, the essence of this individual. Allow me to read from the Dear Jane Eyre. So this is a part of the story when Helen is being reprimanded by this terrible female teacher. And Jane says, "I expected that Helen would show signs of great distress and shame, but to my surprise, she neither wept nor blushed. Composed she stood. How can she bear this punishment so quietly, so firmly?" Jane asks. "Were I in her place, it seems to me that I should wish the earth to open and swallow me up." This is the crucial part. "Helen looks as if she were thinking of something beyond her punishment, beyond her situation, of something not before her. I have heard of daydreams. Is she in a daydream now? Her eyes are fixed on the floor. I am sure they do not see it. Her sight seems to have turned in, gone down into her heart. She is looking at what she can remember, not at what is really present." That is a beautiful way to capture the kind of stoicism that someone like Helen demonstrates. Again, think about us in the modern world. If we were in a classroom and we observed a peer being humiliated by a teacher, and this peer was taking it stoically, would we have the eyes to identify that stoicism? Would we have the eyes to appreciate it? Would we have the eyes, as Jane does, to see that there's some internal compass, there's some worldview that Helen possesses that is allowing her to bear this humiliation with dignity? We don't see people that way anymore. We would probably focus on, oh, the teacher was punishing Helen unjustly. What an evil teacher, or what a humiliating thing. We don't look at the essence of an individual. We don't look at moments of injustice or moments of seeming wrongdoing as presenting an opportunity for a person's character to be shown through. Again, this is what books like this highlight. It reminds you to look at the essence of an individual and to appreciate it. I'll give one other quote, and then I want to play some clips that show how in modern day American life, we tend to define people's essences. I'm actually going to play clips from a graduation commencement address. But first, another quote. Forgive me as I'm turning quickly to these pages. Thank God I have them marked. Another instance of humiliation. That same teacher humiliated Jane one day instead of humiliating Helen, made Jane stand on a stool in front of the whole class, which is just so awful. Can you imagine a teacher doing that today? This is what Jane says. Helen walks by Jane and gives Jane a smile of encouragement during that moment. Jane says, "What a smile Helen has. I remember it now, and I know that it was the effluence of fine intellect, of true courage. It lit up her face, her thin face, her sunken gray eye, like a reflection from the aspect of an angel." When Helen then smiles at Jane, as Jane is standing humiliated on this stool, that teacher, I don't know if Sean has to bleep that out, but I said it, this teacher walks by, sees Helen smiling at Jane, and starts to reprimand Helen. Helen, in typical Helen form, stands there with stoicism and takes it. And you know what Jane says of the teacher? "Such is the imperfect nature of man. Such spots are there on the disk of the clearest planet, and eyes like Miss Scatcherd can only see those minute defects and are blind to the full brightness of the orb." In other words, this teacher can only find this one issue with Helen and not see her full essence, her full beauty. Would we ever describe a situation like that in modern life? It's not even the description. Of course, we wouldn't use the word orb. We wouldn't use some of the words. The point is not the words. The point is, would we observe these situations in life as revealing something about one's character? Would we admire when someone demonstrates a particularly noble part of their character? I don't think we would anymore, because we care more about the facts of a situation, the context of an individual. And it's deadened us to what life is really about, which is learning from other people, observing human nature, and using life moments as an opportunity to present your essence as an individual. So let's look at some clips. I was recently perusing through graduation commencement addresses that were given in recent years to graduating undergraduates. And one of the things I've noticed, I've talked about it on the show before, is that graduation speeches nowadays, the speakers tend to really praise the graduates. And it seems kind of inappropriate because those speakers don't know anything, probably don't know a single person in that audience before them. I want you to listen to this first address, actually given by Joe Biden back when he was vice president to Harvard during Harvard's class day for the class of 2017. Listen to what he says about the graduates, and then I'll say a word on this essence point.
But in order to fill your destiny, class of 17, it's absolutely essential for you to engage in the world around you. Engage, just like you did here on Harvard's campus. And I learned about you lying down in front of Memorial Chapel to insist that Black Lives Matter, or seeing Harvard University dining service workers through their strike, standing with them in a fight for better health care, or joining the hundreds of thousands who came together to take part in a women's march, or the science march, or the climate march. You must maintain that determination and commitment to making things better once you leave this campus, because, as I said, you're the most engaged, tolerant, talented generation in our history.
You are the most engaged, tolerant, talented, he said, generation in our history. He doesn't know a single person in that audience. How does he know that those individuals are engaged, talented, and tolerant? Now President Biden, then Vice President Biden, did list some of the supposed things which indicate the character of the class of 2017. But the point of this is, we have gotten so lazy and imprecise with diagnosing character. The fact that speakers can go up and say such high praise about individuals who they don't know is striking. And the fact that we listen to that, we watch that, and it doesn't even occur to us that this is weird, is also striking. Again, it reflects this imprecision. We don't care really about who a person is, what the essence of an individual is. We just care about, in the case of President Biden, acting like, this generation will serve whatever needs he wants them to serve. Let's listen to what then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton said to the graduating class of Yale.
We're living through a time when fundamental rights, civic virtue, freedom of the press, even facts and reason are under assault like never before. But we are also witnessing an era of new moral conviction, civic engagement, and a sense of devotion to our democracy and country. So here's the good news. If any group were ever prepared to rise to the occasion, it is you, the class of 2018. You've already demonstrated the character and courage that will help you navigate this tumultuous moment. And most of all, you've demonstrated resilience.
Those character traits that she highlighted, courage and resilience, those are very individual. You have to really know someone in order to say whether they are courageous or resilient. That requires an individual with a sturdy, robust, heavily regulated worldview. And in order, as I said, in order for someone to diagnose that, they have to be intimately connected with that person. We just throw these terms around in such a frivolous way, and it cheapens the very virtues themselves. It cheapens our pursuit of them. If Hillary Clinton is telling you at your graduation that you're courageous and you're resilient, you'll kind of believe that about yourself, and you won't work to refine those characteristics. Books like these, like Jane Eyre, bring you back, if you will, from this BS that has come to infect modern life with regard to one's true essence and character. Okay, so I just gave you the graduation speeches example. I'll give another example of how our character has become cheapened and how much we just describe and think of people as labels or these fake things. There is a whole industry off of quite literally wearing the uniform of your immutable characteristics that characterize your identity. Have you ever walked down the street and seen people with pronoun pins, or walked down the street and seen people with proud black women t-shirts or proud feminist t-shirts? There, if you go on Amazon and type in one of these phrases, you will see merchandise, you will see computer stickers, you will see pins, you will see backpacks, you will see so much stuff of just people being able to, again, wear the uniform of their identities. When I was in college, I was struck by how many people in class would pull out their computers and their whole laptop would have stickers on them that say, proud feminist, or vote, 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 or pro, I saw one that said rabid, pro abortion queen. Like, we have come in society today to think that the truth of who we are is what demographic category we fall into, what race we were born, what gender we were born, and what political affiliation we identify. These outward labels tell us absolutely nothing about who we are. Nothing. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're a black woman. I don't even if saying you're a feminist tells me absolutely nothing about you. But we think it does. We think that possessing some of those characteristics automatically makes you a virtuous person. And so to end, I will just say this. Wouldn't it be such a better exercise in school, instead of talking about what's an idiom or what's a metaphor or simile in a book, wouldn't it be amazing if a teacher instructed their student to write about the essence of their friend in a way that Jane Eyre or Charlotte Bronte describes it? That would reignite a love of learning, reignite an appreciation for novels like this, and crucially, bring us back to identifying the essence, character, and worldview that really makes an individual an individual. Thank you for joining me. Again, please be sure to follow me at Julie R. Hartman on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe by hitting the button right down below. And order Jane Eyre, my God, just at the very least to make me happy. But I'm doing you a favor, I promise. I'll see you soon. Take care.